The idea of doing a third one was so insane because when we did the first one, never did Todd Phillips and Zach and Ed and I sit there as contemplating, how we were going to wind up the story that started with a naked man's balls on my neck. How are we going to turn this into a trilogy? So it was so crazy, the fact that we're making a third one. But at the same time, I would make 8 of them because Todd's an incredible director. I mean, he kind of is the best at what he does. And Zach and Ed are, they're incredible. So for me, it was a no-brainer. In the beginning of 3, you basically are finding these guys in the aftermath of 2, which is Stu is now married, and it is in real time. So that we shot that movie a year or 2 years ago, and it's been 2 years. And Phil has a couple more kids. But Alan he's in dire straits. His father just passed away, and you see that in the beginning of the movie. And now that anchor's gone, he was unleashed as it was, but now it's almost unharnessable. For a true fan of the first one especially, the third one is like an investigation of every moment of the first one, and dissecting it and elaborating it and shining a light on all these very little things that we glance by in the first one. This one to me feels almost like the first one, the shooting of it. It feels like we have an amazing script, but we're also loose with it, and a lot of in-between moments are filled with a lot of humor, I think, that Zach and Ed come up with. The collaboration is working on such a communal level, more so than the first and second one, which felt very communal. But there was always a sharing of jokes and a sharing of ways to do things. But now it's even more. Now it's done without any politesse at all. I don't know if you've noticed it, but it's almost like, why don't you just do it this way? Or we'll say to each other without saying like, I'm sorry, but what if, now it's just, everybody just says exactly like, do you think, maybe try this? And it's wonderful. I mean, there's just so much love and respect and comfort that it almost feels like we're all telling the story together. And there is no just Alan, or Stu or Phil without Todd, Zach, me, and Ed, which is a very fun thing to be a part of the other characters' work as well. Oh my gosh, yeah, Ken Jeong has a major part of this third movie, and the lovers of Mr. Chow are going to get their fill, and so they should, because in the first 2 movies he was like the most popular character, and people love him, and it's great to see him and Ken get such an opportunity in this one to really just sort of take it to another level. This movie now is like, we're back and we've taken all of those things, and it's rugged and brutal and massive. I mean, there's parachutes, flying around Vegas at night. There are huge animals in small automobiles. There are a lot of crazy things going on, and it all is kind of grounded. But the cool thing is, I don't think it ever comes from a place where Todd and Craig Mazin thought, let's outdo the second and first one. It is sort of a self-contained unit of, let's just tell a good story. The ones that have lived on and had a legacy, to me, always come from a specific place and point of view. That I know for sure this movie has, because it all comes from Todd Phillips' point of view, which is very specific and personal. And I think that's where the best stories are born from.
We just have an insane and ridiculous and candidly unfair amount of fun working together and making these movies. So when the prospect of another one came up, it was just, if the script is there, if the story feels legit, hell yes, let's absolutely do this. I realized that it's just as important to find the people that you really enjoy working with and that make your day-to-day experience a positive and exciting and fun experience. And that's what we have. That's what we all found, and I think that's why it was so easy to pull the trigger on number 3 for everyone. That said, we're also people who take this craft very seriously and wanted to make sure that creatively it was in the right place and the right thing to do creatively before we jumped on, but you know, the script was there, and Todd is just he's our captain. You know, we just follow him into battle, and he's a hell of a captain. In 3, we have this kind of wonderful new story that pulls all this seemingly random information and circumstance from 1 and 2 and builds this really cool new narrative area that we're in for 3. And I think that's really cool. We start with Married Stu in Hangover 3. And Married Stu is a little cooler than, I think, Stu from 1 and 2. His wife is clearly a kind of beautiful, sophisticated woman who has kind of upped his game a little bit. He's a little more fashionable. He's got a better style to him. You know, the things that typically happen to schlubs who marry better women than they are. Alan's in a little bit of trouble, and the guys need to help him out. And what starts out as a fairly kind of magnanimous gesture just snowballs into utter chaos and hell. Much more so than 1 or 2, if that's possible. I mean, look, I've been a part of this thing from day one. I'm also a fan of this thing. I love the stories and I love these characters, and I was just excited to read Hangover 3, as hopefully fans will be to watch it. And I had that same experience of like turning pages like, no way, are you kidding me? Where did that come from? And I'm really thrilled at some of the exciting things that got injected. What's really cool about Todd is that if something's not working, and if something's not awesome, we will stop. And it doesn't matter how big the production is that day, how many moving parts there are, how many background extras, cars, whatever. He'll stop, and we'll go off and we'll work on it, and we'll just work on the lines, and we'll make sure it's there, and we'll get there. And now, you know, 4 years in, now that we're shooting Hangover 3, we all know each other's strengths, and we know how each other thinks and how each other talks and our cadences. And we can pitch lines for each other, and we can come up with lines. I can come up with a line for Alan. Bradley can come up with a line for me, and there's no pride. There's no room for it. Everybody's just sort of open to a real collaborative machine. And Todd, to his credit, really facilitates that. And what I really admire about Todd is that he won't move on unless it's awesome. Like we won't shoot something. Well, he'll cut, like we'll stop a scene and schedule it for another day, which we've done a handful of times in a major production. It's a big deal because he wants to get it right. And that makes us all feel so much more comfortable and excited. Like we know we're gonna put the work in to get it right. And it's demanding, but incredibly gratifying and a hell of a lot of fun.
It's been a really cool, amazing experience, and it's, I think, changed everyone's lives for the better, certainly. And we've gotten to know wonderful, funny people and create these really indelible characters that I think a lot of people truly love. So it's been a really cool journey. What's cool about Vegas is that it's almost becomes like a folklore there, you know, more than anywhere else. You become kind of part of the city, where you go there and now there's slot machines with our faces on it. The movie's playing 24/7 in some things. You have suites named after the movie in Caesar's Palace. You have literally menu items that are called the Hangover burger. You know, it's like it's become its own thing, which is, I think, you can never imagine that actually happening from something that you just create out of, you know, Todd just writing down some funny stuff. And it's out there. It's a wild thing, a wild ride. Something awful happens in Alan's family, which is the impetus to try to send him away. And his family knows that he will only listen to his friends, aka the Wolf Pack. So we approach him and in an intervention, and he begrudgingly accepts. So that is kind of the jumping off point for this story. And then it just, you know, snowballs into something way crazier.
He emailed me and just said that he wrote me into the script, and that it was Jade is triumphant or something. And so I was excited that they involved me, and it was fun. And, you know, it's been really fun seeing everyone again. It feels like, it's almost like a time warp of like, oh, you feel the same kind of vibe, but now everyone's like so successful. So it's kind of just, it's fun to just see everyone again. And I have this amazingly loving husband that accepts my child with another man, and I'm pregnant with a baby, and I think I'm pretty happy. Like, I just left behind my troubled past, and I kind of think of the guys as sort of like a link of when I changed my life.
Alan is having some kind of midlife crisis. If he were to live to 120, be a midlife. Alan's 60 years old. Looks good. But Alan's having kind of a midlife crisis, even though he doesn't really know it. He has to be told he's having a crisis. The story for the third one starts basically, something kind of happens to Alan's life. And he kind of has a meltdown. He's also not been the most responsible adult. There is people are concerned, and they try to help Alan, and that's how the movie starts. Helping Alan. Nice and innocent. Let's drive him somewhere. Then this Chow guy gets, he's back from the I don't know, from the east. It's neat. It's neat to be acting with John Goodman. Who wouldn't want to be acting with John Goodman? And he's funny, and I like him. He's a giggler. We went to dinner, and he giggled a lot, which I tend to do, and I like that in a grown man. And he's very grown. These movies are always physical. Todd has always had physical. This is my fourth movie with him. It's always a lot of physicality. Car chases, fights, gunshots, and that kind of stuff is fun because you're a grown man and you're living in a little fantasy world, and you get to drive in a car down the highway when there's no one around, and it's neat. Right. To bring back that word. It's fun. I mean, when you're a kid and you're thinking about, oh, I'd like to be in movies and stuff. I've known Ken since, God, the 90, probably 97. We would do stand-up together in coffee shops down in Culver City. And so it's we didn't think we'd ever end up in a movie, to be honest, the way we were going back then, especially together. But so that's nice. It's a nice element, an old pal that you get to act with. And I knew Bradley and Ed. Yeah, we're kind of like an old bickering family, but bickering with love. I love the jokes in this one. We got some good jokes coming your way, and there's some pretty good high-octane action stuff. And there's also emotion in this one. So I think it has a lot of, what you want to go see. You want to get a few laughs. You want to see a car crash. Is that your thing? And, you know, you get a couple of tearjerkers here and there. Maybe, if it's done right. Do they just assume that you're going to go hang from 68 feet or whatever it was? And no net. I mean, there's a harness, obviously. It's completely safe, but my irrational mind tells me that something, all I'm thinking about is earthquakes when I'm up there. Because if an earthquake happens, there's nothing you can do. And you think somebody's gonna be there they're all gonna scramble to get out. You think people are gonna go, they would be just dangling. If I was lucky enough to survive the earthquake and that nothing happened with the thing, you know, it would be me, and this is where my mind goes, I'm just telling you, me at an empty stage while Armageddon's happening, dangling from 60 feet. No cell reception. Problems. I think when you watch, it's kind of like flipping through literally with this movie, through a photo album, and it's fun to see. You know, I probably won't watch the movies for years, but one day it'll be fun to like stumble upon it, or it does. It brings good memories back. It really does.
I have so much fun doing the Hangover movies because it's my favorite film crew to work with. You know, like I love Todd and Larry, the DP. I mean, we're all like family, and you know, not to mention Bradley, Ed, Zach, Justin. You know, and so to me, it's like working with really good friends, and we all have like a shorthand of communication. We all get each other. You know, and we all work well with each other, and there's such a good chemistry. I love the fact that, you know, it's not another forgotten night. It's not another bachelor party. It really is its own movie in terms of like having a very, very unique pace and sense of narrative, and which is great because you don't have you don't know what to expect. I think this movie, to me, it deals with the consequences of the first two movies, you know, and also inverting some of the narrative. It just, there's just great twists and turns that go along this way. I always think of Todd Phillips, you know, his movies and that narrative of like you're on a roller coaster and you just, oh my, look at these trees. Oh wow, there's like that to me is like a Todd Phillips, you know, is amazing. I look at Chow as a great device for mayhem, you know, and one thing I have in common with Todd is like we both love our mayhem. We've all been on the same page of just like making it as good as possible because, you know, we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to the fans, you know, to make this the best. You know, and that's what I love about going the third time around. No one's phoning this in. Everyone is, well, we have the same kind of hunger that we did in the first movie, just trying to make it as good as possible. It's like flying Elvises, just landing on the strip, and to me, it's the greatest spectacle you can see there when you're going through the Bellagio and timing the fountains just right. To, you know, who does that? We do. You know, it's one of those things where it's so surreal that even I'm still grasping, like, is this really happening right now?
This film is very much Alan's journey, and Alan, of course, played by Zach Galifianakis, has really never changed across the movies. He's gone through the traumas with the other guys, but he sort of doesn't realize that it's all that bad and never thinks it's all that bad, and they've been adventures to him. And in this movie, it finds him in a really dark place after the death of his father. As I was writing it, my writing part, I always was listening to opera. It felt very operatic to me, and very epic, and that's the word we kept using, was epic. And we were going for a really epic finish to the Hangover trilogy. It's always nice for it to come back to where it began, and Hangover 3 does that by bringing back a few people we loved, like Heather Graham and her kid, baby Carlos, from the first one. You know, Mike Epps, who plays Black Doug, we bring back. I think it's always really, and of course, you know, the biggest character in The Hangover 1 was Las Vegas, and we end up in this movie, because of circumstance, back in Vegas. The return to Vegas in 2012 in the fall to film, of course, you know, they rolled out the red carpet for us. It was the Hangover 3. We're back in town. They love the movie, love what the movie represents, how it represents Vegas for the most part. When we all get together, it really still feels like the first Hangover, and all that stuff gets put out the window and we're just there trying to make each other laugh, which is essentially what we do every day. Ken Jeong as Mr. Chow, who's literally, you know, the other most beloved character next to Alan in the Hangover franchise. Ken Jeong got put through the paces on this movie in a way, and we'll be forever indebted to him because, you know, the guy was a doctor 5 years ago, and here he is dangling from a rope and green screen and in parachute over Las Vegas, and, you know, doing things with him that he just could never imagine having done. Since the yelling action on day one of the first Hangover to now, a lot has changed for everybody involved, particularly those three guys, particularly for me. So it's fun to talk about with them. It's fun to look back on. It's also fun to kind of look through the three movies and think of all the insane things that we did and all the places we went, and all the sort of discussions we had about each thing and arguments and laughter and all that stuff over, like you said, 5 or 6 years and 3 movies.